Welcome to the channel, my name is Jack and I'll make videos about all things tech. And this is Sony's brand new virtual reality headset for the PS5, the PSVR2. I've only had this for a few days now, but I'm already super impressed by it and I wanted to make this first impressions video. The first PSVR, which is just sat behind me on the shelf, launched all the way back in 2016. This is the second generation. It has all new features, all new specs that we'll go through. We'll look at some gameplay, and I'll just tell you about my general experience with the headset, which has been really positive so far. It is kind of hard though for me to show VR content on a flat screen for you guys though. It's really something that you just have to experience for yourself. So if you do get a chance to try it out, I highly recommend it. Hopefully Sony will have some demos set up in stores like last time so that people can just try this out for themselves. So let's get to it. Everything you get comes in this big white PlayStation box, which you should definitely keep as it also doubles as a storage box when you're not using the headset. Inside there's another smaller box. I picked up the bundle with Horizon Call of the Mountain, so that's where you'll find your code if you get that. There's also some documentation, a USB-C cable for charging the new PSVR2 Sense controllers, and some new wired earbuds. These snap right onto the headset, which I'll show you later. Then we've got the brand new Sense controllers, and these are just way better in basically every way than the Move ones for the PSVR1. They've been completely rethought and redesigned, but let's take a quick look first around the headset. The design very much matches the look of the PS5. It's also an evolution of the first PSVR. There's a button and a dial on the back of the headband for adjusting and tightening it to your head. The headset is very comfortable and light. In fact, it's 40 grams lighter than the PSVR1. There's another button here on the front for adjusting the distance of the displays to your eyes, and I wear pretty big glasses and they fit in the headset just fine. But there are quite a few big improvements too, like the cameras are now on the headset itself for inside-out tracking. There's no more using the PlayStation camera like with PSVR1, which tracked the LED lights, which often resulted in some weird drifting. It has even higher resolution OLED displays at 2000 by 2040 pixels per eye at 90 or 120 Hz. And there is a third way which reprojects 60 FPS to 120 Hz output, which I'll talk a bit more about later on. It also supports HDR, and the screen in general is just a massive improvement over the first generation. The high resolution means there's less of the screen door effect when you're moving your head around, and I'm so glad that Sony went with OLED. The HDR just looks amazing. There's a new dial here on the left of the headset to adjust the horizontal lens separation so you can match it to your own eyes, and there's some visualization during the setup to help you line these up. The headset has a slightly wider field of view, now at 110 degrees, up from 100, and as well as those 4 cameras on the outside, there's now an infrared camera on the inside of the headset for tracking your eye movement, which is super cool. You can just sort of look at menu items to select things without even having to move your head or use the analog sticks. And it can be used as part of gameplay, plus for something called Foveated Rendering, which I'll explain later. On the bottom of the headset, there's a power button, a button for enabling the new see-through view, which uses those external cameras so you can see your surroundings without having to take the headset off. That's super useful. And a built-in mic just here. There's also a 3.5mm headphone jack in the headband. The PSVR2 comes with a pretty decent pair of earbuds. These snap right into the headband and you can store them in these little pockets on the side so they're not just dangling about all over the place. And it does come with some other sizes of earbuds too. Or you can just use your own buds or a wireless PS5 headset. It has this single USB-C cable for plugging into the PS5. There's no more awkward pass-through box to deal with like before. It's about 4.5 meters long. This is not a wireless headset, but that cable means that the headset can be a lot lighter and there's no need for a heavy battery on the headset itself. And to be honest, I haven't really had any problems with the cable either. It's just kind of dangling there during gameplay, but it hasn't gotten in my way just yet. These are the new Sense controllers, and these are incredible. These are one of my favorite new things about this new headset. They have this orb-like design. They fit right in with the headset and the PS5. Together, they have the same buttons as a normal DualSense controller, minus the D-pad and the touchpad. Each controller has a PlayStation button, 2 face buttons, an analog stick, an options or a share button for screenshots and screen recording, L2 and R2 triggers, and buttons for L1 and R1 on the sides. The whole controller wraps around your hands, and it even has finger tracking too, so it can sense your finger positions and mimic them as gestures in-game. But I will say that this works a lot better in some games than in others. Sometimes it just doesn't match up with what my hands are doing at all. I do want to talk briefly about the first setup. Once you plug the headset in with that USB-C cable, the PS5 will just guide you through the whole setup process, and it's really just super simple. It helps you adjust the lens distance to match your own eyes, how to use the see-through mode to see your surroundings with the headset on, how the eye tracking works and how to adjust it, and how to set up the virtual boundary for a play area so you don't go wandering off into a table or something. It scans the whole room and then you can edit the boundary as needed. There's 3 types of play styles. There's sitting or standing in at least a 1 by 1 meter area, or there's room scale where you can stand and move around in the space, and that needs at least a 2 by 2 meter area to play in. Which of these you can play depends on the size of your room and the game that you're playing. Some games only support specific styles, and some of them will support all of them. And yeah, I'm sorry that I can't show you the whole setup process myself. I really do need to get a capture card, but I'll link to PlayStation Access's video in full below if you want to see more. So there's about 40 or so games that are going to be available in the launch window, and some of these are completely new VR only games. Some of them are updated PSVR1 games, and there are a few that are standard games that have now been updated so that you can play them in full in VR, like Gran Turismo 7 and No Man's Sky. I've not had a chance to try every single game yet, but I have tried a few of them, as well as some demos. And so yeah, these are definitely still some first impressions. But I have been really impressed by Horizon Call of the Mountain. It's set in the world of Horizon, where you play as a new character called Reyes. The graphics and the world just look incredible in VR. Guerrilla's done an amazing job at just capturing the feel of that world and translating it into an all-new VR game and experience. That eye tracking that I mentioned earlier is also used for something really clever. It's called Foveated Rendering. Now, games already use some clever tricks to only render things that are within the player's view. There's no point wasting processing power on rendering something behind the player, right? But Foveated Rendering takes it a step further. It renders the parts of the scene that you're directly looking at a full level of detail, and then lowers the level of detail in your peripheral vision. And it's constantly adjusting that high level of detail to whatever you're looking at. And in practice, it works pretty much flawlessly. I mean, I've not noticed it changing in gameplay at all as I've been looking around. And it's what allows such high fidelity graphics like you see in Horizon to even exist in VR, because rendering VR content is generally more taxing as it needs much higher frame rates. So this is a clever way to save and optimize resources. It is a linear game versus the open world of the main Horizon series, but it takes full advantage of all the unique ways that you can play in VR. You have full control over your hand movements in game using the Sense controllers. You can pick things up in the world and manipulate them. As you unlock new tools, you have to build them like a puzzle. You can draw your weapons or your tools by reaching over the back of your shoulder. The bow and arrow is one of my favourites, and it's just so satisfying to use. You hold the bow with one hand and you draw the arrow back with the other, and it just feels so responsive. Like the main games, you can craft different arrow types with the parts you collect. And these are crafted by building the arrows yourself, which is kind of cool. There is quite a lot of climbing in this game, which just feel a bit strange at first. You do look a bit ridiculous doing it as well, but it is genuinely quite tiring and a bit of a workout. There's some really clever ways to interact with the game too. To switch arrow types, you just hold your bow sideways, revealing all the different arrows to choose from. Normally things like health are displayed in a bar in the corner of the screen in a normal game, but here it's actually displayed on your left hand as these little green markers, and eating fruit of course refills your health. But yeah, I thought that was such a clever way to sort of keep the UI clean and have just a more immersive experience than having just a normal health bar. There's a lot of ways to interact with the world too. There's all these little mini games and puzzles along the way, or even just wall painting. I'm clearly not an artist, but it's nice to have these little details that you can find in the game that just make it so much more immersive and fun to explore. The only knock that I'd give this game is that it has a weird ghosting when you sort of pan or move your head quite quickly. It doesn't show up in gameplay captures, but it's very noticeable in the gameplay itself. And the reason it happens is because the game is running at 60 FPS and it's being reprojected to 120 Hz. And I thought that this was a bug or a glitch at first, but I've seen a lot of other people mentioning it. And I'm not sure if it's something that can be fixed with a software update, or if it's just simply because of the reprojection that's happening, and that's just the way it is. Job Simulator is actually a PSVR1 game that's been updated to work with PSVR2. PSVR1 games aren't forwards compatible by default. Developers do have to update them because of the whole new tracking system and the new controllers. But even with the more simplistic graphic style, it just looks so much clearer with the new headset with that higher resolution. And it just feels so much more natural to use the Sense controllers versus the old ones. There's no weird drifting or warnings that the cameras can't see you anymore like with the PSVR1, and I would actually get that happen a lot to me because I am quite tall, and if I had to reach up high for something, the camera would just lose sight of the controller in the limited field of view that it had. But that's all fixed here with PSVR2, and it's been really fun revisiting one of these older games. It's set in a world where all of the human jobs have been replaced by robots, and these computers have come along and they've recreated what those jobs were like for humans to experience them again. It's very sarcastic, it has a lot of humour to it, and I'd highly recommend it if that's your sort of thing. I have also tried a couple of demos like Cosmonious High. I think I've probably said that wrong, but I'm not sure how to say it. You're basically in a classroom and you have these elemental powers, and you can mix different elements together to make new ones. Or just generally mess around and shoot water at everyone. Or just break things because you're clumsy and you're still learning the controls. And I've also tried Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. Now, something that I found with each game is that the walking speed and the panning speeds are always different, just like in normal games. Sometimes it uses snapping as well when you turn, and that's a bit sort of jarring for me at least. But there'll usually be a VR menu in the settings of the game, so you can tweak those kinds of things. Sometimes I find the walking movement just to be too fast. It makes me feel a bit dizzy, so I have to slow it down, and the same goes with the panning speed. But this one was a lot of fun too. You can pick up a little scanning droid and just throw it up into the air and it will scan for enemies. You can pick up different blaster types and use them in fights. You have this computer on your wrist and you can use that to scan things as well. It all feels very Star Wars, and the sound design is really on point. It's really immersive. You also have a jetpack for boosting and flying around the levels. And I don't know if it's because of that or because I had been playing a few VR games for well over an hour at this point, but I was starting to feel a bit motion sick, so I did have to stop and have a little bit of a rest, and I did quickly feel a lot better. But that's just something to be aware of with VR2. Everyone will have different tolerances to it. Some people won't feel anything at all, but it's good to take regular breaks, of course, anyway. A few more little things to note. The controllers and the headset can vibrate. I kept forgetting that the headset could do that, and every time something flew past me in Horizon, it gave me a bit of a shock. On the PSVR1, the lenses used to fog up literally every single time that I put it on, but that hasn't happened a single time with the second generation. Sony's now added some vents to help prevent that from happening. The controller battery life should last you about 4 to 5 hours each, and that's not really been a problem for me, as I tend to do VR sessions for about an hour or two max. I did also pick up the Sense charging dock, and this comes with little adapters for the C ports on the controllers, so you can just drop these into the charger, which is handy. But because of their orb shape, it can be kind of awkward to sort of get these perfectly in the right place to charge. As I said earlier, I've had no problems using the headset with my glasses, even though they're massive. And I can kind of get away with just not wearing them at all because I am only a little bit short-sighted. But if you are someone who wears glasses, I think you should be fine too. When wearing the headset, I have found that there is a very small sweet spot for getting the clearest possible image. So definitely take some time in just moving and adjusting the headband position and the lens distance just to make sure that everything is just right for you. I have genuinely been really impressed by PSVR2. It's a huge improvement over PSVR1, and I can't wait to just play it some more and try out some more games. But it's very hard to just sort of show it and describe what it's like to use, so if you do get an opportunity to try it for yourself somewhere, definitely give it a go. I'm hoping that we see some more big titles like Horizon for it. I think Sony is going to need a few more big games like that to convince people to buy the headset. And I'm really hoping that we see things like Half-Life Alyx and maybe another Astrobot game. He's been suspiciously absent from the launch. Now, there has been a lot of talk about the price of the PSVR2, and at $550, yeah, it does cost more than a PS5, there's no doubt about that. In comparison, the PSVR1 launched at just $400, but that was just for the headset. It didn't include the cameras or any of the controllers. That bundle cost $500. Otherwise, the PSVR2 is priced pretty much the same as the PSVR1 as a complete package back in 2016. But to get a PSVR2 and a PS5, that is going to cost you around $1,000 or pounds, which understandably might put some people off until more games have been released. So that has been my first look and first impressions of the PSVR2. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video. I'm sure that there's some things that I haven't covered and that I've missed, so comment below if you've got any questions. And if you want to see more tech videos from me, hit subscribe and the bell. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.